Yeah, we're going to keep an eye on this as we have been throughout the course of this hour. But in the meantime, we're going to head a little south from LA, down towards the San Francisco area, because there's another big event happening next weekend, Tony P. You may have heard of it. It's the Super Bowl.
Yes, I do.
Super Bowl countdown officially underway. But like I said, some people could care less about the Seahawks or the Patriots. They're just watching for that man right there, Bad Bunny. The countdown to the Benito Bowl officially underway. So for more on the hype, David Betancourt joins us now live. David is the sports memorabilia and collectible editor for The Athletic. He's also the host of the Blurs in the Attic podcast. David, also, I consider you a good friend of mine, even though technically we have never met in person. So,
wow,
I'm a huge fan,
cool.
and I have just been looking for an excuse to have you on this show. So I very much appreciate you making the time for us here tonight.
Our friendship is very virtual and has been over the years. It started on Twitter, which is now X, and we've transferred from Twitter to text messages, but we'll meet in person one day.
We will meet in person one day.
Good.
And if people wonder what we've had to bond over, just look behind him right now, and it's basically everything you see on the wall back there.
That is a great range.
Thank you. This is the office set up. At the Athletic, it's I work from home, so I work here in my attic.
Nice.
Remodel it into an office. Is also where I do my Blurs in the Attic podcast with J.O. Coker, the creator of Luke Cage. So behind me is more or less my personalities. A lot of superheroes, a lot of sports, which are the two things I love the most.
Love that.
Also, the flag that's right over your shoulder, too. That's part of your personality, too, David, because you are Puerto Rican, as is Bad Bunny, and I know you are a huge fan of his. We need to establish that. So is it safe to say that you're excited for this halftime show?
I'm very excited, and yes, I am Puerto Rican and proud of it. My father is Puerto Rican. His parents were both born in Puerto Rico. My grandfather in Mayagüez, my grandmother in Cialis. When you're raised Puerto Rican in the United States, it's all about pride in who you are and being proud of that island. And obviously I have the flag here. That's part of my personality as well. But extremely excited for the Benito Bowl. And excited to give a little coverage to it. In my family, my sister Bianca's a journalist as well. When Bad Bunny was on the cover of Harper's Bazaar, my sister Bianca actually wrote that story. So this is finally my time to add a little bit to the Benito journalism trials of our family.
When looking at this moment, this is a very historic halftime show, what it's going to mean for the game as well as the culture in the country. What kind of impact do you think the show is going to have creatively as well as on the game and just everybody coming together to see this show?
One of the biggest impact I think that there's going to be with the Bad Bunny halftime show, and also something that's been a little controversial with the announcement that he's going to perform, is this isn't the first time we've had Latino artists. Most recently we can remember Jennifer Lopez and Shakira teamed up for a halftime performance. But what Bad Bunny represents is really the first time. Previously, in Latin America, when you reach the apex of pop culture in Latin America, the next step is generally always the English album to cross over into the quote-unquote mainstream. Bad Bunny has made it clear that he has no intention of ever doing that. All of his albums have always been in Spanish. That's what he's going to be performing when he performs at the Super Bowl this year. He's very unapologetic about it. He's very proud of his culture and what the album represents. And this is going to be a first, a performer performing the Super Bowl halftime show in halftime. Obviously, you have a huge fan base and a lot of fans that know the lyrics and know the words. Bad Bunny, truthfully, has helped a lot of Latinos in the U.S. who maybe aren't as strong in the Spanish language get a little closer to learning it a little bit more. So this is it's a very cultural moment. He's very aware of that. And I think people are looking for not just the moment of being the first person to do this in Espanol, but also is there potentially going to be a message with it as well with everything that's going on in the world?
Right. Yeah, that actually leads me right into my next question, which is, do you have any sort of expectations for what he may do with this halftime show? And do you anticipate him kind of bringing out any guests, or do you think this is going to be a solo show?
It's funny. I was talking to my wife in Spanish today, and I said I wouldn't be surprised if Cardi B showed up. I Like It Like That is a huge hit that he stars on with her, and Cardi B's boyfriend, Stefan Diggs, is on one of the teams that's in the Super Bowl, so she's likely already going to be there anyway. So how cool would that be if she just kind of like just popped on stage and they performed a little bit? Uh, in terms of what I think is going to happen, if you take a look back at his most recent musical event, he's touring in Latin America right now. He recently completed his residency in Puerto Rico, which was historic. His music always has a message, especially his latest album, Debí tirar más fotos, which in Spanish means I should have taken more pictures. What that entire album is about is really the connections that Puerto Ricans have to Puerto Rico and the fear that it might be slipping through their fingers because of gentrification, because of all the changes that are happening on the island in terms of investments that are kind of phasing Puerto Ricans out from being able to own a piece of the island. So that's been a huge message in his music, especially the last album. And I wouldn't be surprised if we get a little bit of that in the performance.
When looking at the Super Bowl halftime generally over the years and how it's really just morphed over time to really be this cultural phenomenon, what does this halftime show mean for the artists when they come on? Is it more about getting like something out there, like in terms of like, new album or a new type of song they're promoting, or is it really just a great opportunity to expand the fan base, or is it more of just a cultural achievement and just another apex that an artist can add to their resume?
As I recall, artists that perform at the Super Bowl halftime show historically don't get paid for it, if I recall.
Yeah, exactly.
And the reason that the NFL and the Super Bowl can get away with that is because they're guaranteeing such a large audience that you really know that, hey, not getting paid, but pretty much half the world, if not all of the world, is going to be watching me. And I think Bad Bunny has Latin America on lock. He has most of the Latinos who live in other countries, whether it be Europe, whether it be here in the States. Everyone loves Bad Bunny. But I think he truly believes he can potentially reach a very large audience that maybe isn't into his music. And what artist wouldn't want a chance to do that?
Exactly.
Well, to that point, I do think he enjoys a lot of crossover appeal. What do you credit that to? And I also just have to establish, in case you were listening at the end of the tail end of our last interview, we talked about the Grammys with Ashley Dvorkin. He is nominated for Album of the Year and stands a good chance of winning that, which would kick off a pretty epic 2-week stretch for Bad Bunny here.
Super Bowl halftime performance and album of the year would be, that's not the triple A they call it, and over in soccer, he'd need one more thing to do, but that would absolutely be pretty historic. I think, he's got an incredible chance to, again, I think reach an audience that he hasn't reached before. I don't think that, I don't know. There's so much thought as to whether or not there's going to be a strong message or if it's going to be this big party. Yeah. I saw you guys were showing some of the promotional video that recently came out advertising this event. That video was very beautifully done, and it was very inclusive.
Yeah.
That video, you saw him dancing and reaching out his hand to basically every type of person there is in the United States. He didn't leave anyone on the wayside in that video. And that was basically him saying, I'm welcoming you into my culture. You're going to have a good time. Let's go.
Yeah, because part of me, I just personally would like to see a strong message, because I think it's an important inflection point, especially the last couple of weeks, for his voice to be a part of this major moment. And I like the video of how it may be a moment to really talk about these issues. But when looking at the NFL side of this, when they decided, to pick him and make him, this centerpiece of the event, do you think that it was mainly, again, to make the game, to help the game reach out to a larger audience as they try to expand, meaning the NFL, to different countries and to really, get the game to grow? Or do you think the NFL was sending a message about the times we're living in, in this second Trump administration and some of the issues that we're fighting about in America? Do you think the NFL was trying to send a message by this choice, or are they just trying to do more of a business expansion through music?
This is definitely, some people on the NFL side have come out and, to defend the decision to invite Bad Bunny to perform at the halftime show. But the NFL it's always about the shield. Always. Oh, yeah. And this is a huge, getting the biggest pop star globally on the planet, one of literally the most streamed musician in the history of streaming, to perform at your halftime show is a good business move, especially when you know that artist dominates Latin America, where historically American football, football in Latin America is soccer. And that's the number one sport there. This is a chance. This is why the NFL has recently had games in Brazil. This is why they've recently had games in Spain. There's always been a desire to get into that Latin American and European market, and those are markets that I can say from descending from that market, from being married into that market. My wife is from Latin America, the Dominican Republic. There are sections of Latin America where American football, no one is giving it a second thought. So this is really a chance by having Bad Bunny on that stage to get a lot of eyes that normally wouldn't be a part of watching an American football game, period. I keep saying American football because in Spanish football is soccer.
The original football is soccer. The original football is soccer. I love American football, but football, that's the real football.
David, speaking of the NFL and Bad Bunny, though, part of the hype around this halftime show is this merch drop that you wrote about in The Athletic recently. Talk to us about that.
Well, if you had a chance to attend not even the residency recently in Puerto Rico, but any of Bad Bunny's concerts, it also should be pointed out that his tour is skipping the United States this time around, where he's usually always had tours in the United States.
Right.
But a big part of those concerts is always the merch. I hate to bring up my sister Bianca again because she gets so much attention in the family anyway, but she frequently goes to those concerts. She went to the residency in Puerto Rico. She went to a concert here in D.C., even though she lives in New York. And one of the most exciting things when you go to those concerts is the merch. So you've got the person there like, okay, here are the sweatshirts, here are the hats. It's always a big deal. So it was kind of like a ticking clock in terms of that announcement that I wrote about with the NFL teaming up with Bad Bunny. It was only a matter of time. If you've been a part of the Bad Bunny concert experience, you know that the merch is such a huge part of it. So you knew that there were going to be products coming that not only he's got Concho, the Puerto Rican toad, which has become kind of his like mascot in terms of the last album, on a lot of these products, wearing NFL uniforms, wearing helmets, there, all kinds of stuff like that. So that was only a matter of time, and it's really exciting. I think they did a great job of being inclusive of all 32 teams, not just the two teams, the Seahawks and Patriots that are in the Super Bowl. So if you're a fan of Bad Bunny and you're a fan of the NFL, there's, right now an NFL product with not only his Toad logo, but your team logo on the back.
Is that your way of telling us you got a burgundy and gold Concho sweatshirt coming your way?
I do.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
They got a little too much of my money.
If the Patriots win, I'm there to buy 5 of them. Yeah. So you can just to keep have good luck with that. And I'll tell you, as someone who likes Bad Bunny's music, if the Pats win and he's the halftime show, I will become a mega fan because
it is so funny listening to Boston fans who, let's face it, suffered for so long. But once they got a taste of winning, they can't get enough of it, Well,
in the last 6 years.
Won enough?
Well, there's a great meme going on around online, the old SpongeBob episode where they put SpongeBob and Patrick in the jail for 5 seconds.
Yes.
And they go, all right, time's up.
To get back to the Super Bowl.
That's right. Like the 6-year gap is like, all right, you can't do the time, don't do the crime. It's like 6 years, you're up, you're done. Oh, my God. It's going to be an incredible game. Just my final quick question. When looking at a merch drop like this, and we always know the light show, the immersive experience of this show that ties to the music. Are there certain things that you would expect from a visual perspective or a structure of the performance that you've seen from other concerts that Bad Bunny has done that could be brought to the Super Bowl?
I think there's going to be a lot of Puerto Rican culture on display in terms of the dance, in terms of the sounds, in terms of the songs selected, in terms of the wardrobe, in terms of the hats, and in terms of everything. He really did such an incredible job with the Puerto Rico residency, putting all of Puerto Rico's culture on display. And now with the chance to do that for the world, it's going to be a very exciting time for Puerto Ricans and the island of Puerto Rico.
David, can I put you on the spot for a minute and just kind of nerd out about some other pop culture stuff that I know you will matter to you?
I'm down for that. I'm down for that.
This is
okay.
Fun.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, The Secret of the
It's coming back to theaters.
Coming back to theaters. Is it really been 35 years?
No comment.
No comment.
This is your group chat. I can imagine this is
100% something that would be in our group chat. Listen.
So I'm a huge Ninja Turtles fan from the original cartoon, the original movies. My favorite is the first movie, but I understand, the Secret of the Ooze has hit the 35-year mark. That's something to celebrate. They did the same thing for the first movie when the first movie hit its 35th anniversary. It's going to be great to see it on the big screen again. And even though my favorite is the first one, I'm still very excited.
That was 1989, right? Was that 89 or 90?
1990. That's an excellent question.
I think it might have been 89, maybe.
Either 89 or 90.
Yeah.
Okay, we could debate all day whether 1 or 2 is better, and I understand the argument, but Ninja Turtles 2, The Secret of the Ooze, does feature... that's the one with Vanilla Ice, right?
Oh,
go
God.
Ninja,
Yes, go Ninja, go Ninja, go.
Yeah.
Vanilla
okay, that
Ice
is burned into my brain.
Was that his second hit?
I don't know if that one counts as a hit.
Vanilla Ice with the one hit. Sorry, I'm not throwing shade at Vanilla Ice, but I mean, I think he deserves some shade.
You know what's funny? At 10, 11 years old, I didn't think it actually came off as kind of cool, although it was funny because you can tell that it was filmed at the height of his fame, and then by the time the movie came out, you're kind of like, is this cool or not? But
right, he kind of was viral before it was viral.
It was just debatable at that point. All right, the other thing we can nerd out about, because you recommended this to me, and I'm looking forward to starting it on my overnight shift, Wonder Man, streaming now on Disney+.
Wonder Man, first of all, Marvel Studios has been getting a lot of flack. You know, they've had this in the can for a while, and there are a lot of people complaining that they haven't done a great job promoting it in terms of how they normally treat their shows and their movies. Also, they dumped all 8 episodes. They normally never do that. Usually, especially with the Disney Plus releases, you have to wait week to week. So this was a rare moment for a Marvel TV show on Disney Plus where you could binge the whole thing in one sitting. Each episode is only about 30-something minutes. I thought it was fantastic. Yaya and Ben Kingsley were amazing. It's funny, when Yaya did Watchmen, that was back when I was a comic book culture reporter at the Washington Post, and I did a feature on him because, spoiler alert, it was a big reveal that in Watchmen he was Dr. Manhattan. But I actually went back and reread that story that I wrote just because I was so happy for Yaya. This is a great moment for him. I think he's going to be an integral part of the MCU. I think they nailed it. It's not a buddy cop thing, but it's a buddy flick for those people that.
With Sir Ben Kingsley, of all people.
Yeah, that's definitely...
He's in his 80s, and he's just killing it.
Yeah.
And he's so great alongside Yaya. It was just so well done. What it is, though, is that when Marvel shows get the critical acclaim, it's usually because they veer away from the super, and it's more so just a show. As you know me, I'm very much into the super. I love comic book movies. I can't wait for Avengers Doomsday, all that stuff. But this really is, if you're trying to dabble in Marvel but you don't want to be overwhelmed, which is what the Marvel Spotlight is about. So when you watch it, you'll see that it says Marvel Television, and it'll say Spotlight. That Spotlight signage is literally letting fans know you don't have to have seen all of the movies in the MCU to enjoy this show.
You literally just took the next question out of my mouth.
So I'm going to nerd out for 1 second about the kind of cross we're seeing between social media, content creation, and this new media environment where we're just seeing changes every single day. Let me ask you this. When looking at streaming culture and the future of all these studios that are starting to kind of consolidate and come together, we're seeing things now like micro dramas and micro rom-coms and these like movies that are 10, 15 minutes long and all these sketches.
Vertical video.
Right, vertical video. What do you see as the reason for this, based on your history in this business, in this field, and what do you see? How's this going to work with vertical and short form? Are we going to just have shorter movies, or are there going to be more episodic content? Like, how do you see this kind of minefield playing out?
One thing I can say about all those micro dramas, and let's face it, we all have cell phones. We all scroll every now and then on our social media feeds to check on our friends and family. And it's impossible to not come across one of those at least once a day.
Right.
One thing I can say about those is they're a hell of a lot cheaper to make than a movie. And what's going on right now is that the theatrical industry hasn't fully recovered post-COVID. And it's been a real struggle to get people in the theaters, in large part because they haven't really figured out the theatrical release window. If a movie comes out in a movie theater and is available to stream 4 weeks later, a lot of people are just going to wait for it to hit streaming. A lot of people have huge TVs, high definition, are comfortable seeing it at home, don't want to spend $100 on popcorn between a family of 4. There's a lot going into it. And we're at a point now, because we have this supposed superhero fatigue, a lot of pressure is on movies like Avengers Doomsday, like He-Man that's about to come out, to really, use that nostalgia to bring people back in. And I do think this is going to be a great year for movies. There's a lot of cool stuff coming out. But as you guys know, being journalists and a platform, like television, where everyone's eyes are all the time is changing. You know where I see the best commercials now? On YouTube. Yes. You know why? Because everybody's on freaking YouTube.
Everybody's on
YouTube. Oh, yeah.
That's something I teach. I teach the University of Maryland class on comic book culture, and it's one of the things I teach my students, because even as a professor, I can't just say, well, here's everything you need to do to be a newspaper columnist, because the world is adapting. And one thing that's really changed, and social media has, look at all the people who are covering these big movie releases. A lot of time they're influencers now, instead of your standard reporters from the Hollywood Reporter, Variety. A lot of times it's a guy that did the funny ice challenge video, and all of a sudden he's interviewing Robert Downey Jr. or something like that.
And there's some good and bad with that. As someone who is an influencer and trying to do more journalism, I think real journalists should get the first dibs. But I understand where you're. Like what you're saying with this, it is important is to get the eyeballs from that audience to a movie, for example.
Speaking of social media and speaking of YouTube, though, that is two areas where you can find Blurs in the Attic. Shout it out, David.
Yes.
Oh, thank you, Flu. I do the Blurs in the Attic podcast with my good friend Cheo Hodari Coker. Cheo is the creator of Netflix's Luke Cage show. He's a great friend. I did some reporting on him back in the day, and we've had a great friendship ever since. If you like Pardon the Interruption with Tony Kornheiser and Michael Wilbon, if you're a big sports person, it's basically PTI, but we talk about comics and superheroes and all that stuff.
Oh, that's really cool.
That is awesome. I love checking it out. David, thank you so much for spending some time with us here tonight. We literally took it right up to the last 45
that was
seconds
fun, though.
of
That
the show.
was worth it.
I appreciate you spending your Friday night here with us.
Thank you for having me, guys. Let's do it again.
Let's do it again. Absolutely. Yes. I'll be in touch.
I have six questions I want to ask him more.
Thank you so much for spending some time with us here on the Live Zone Primetime. We're going to take you back out to L.A. where those protests are still